they hit a blow off. They got under control, I think.
Katie, are we ready?
Not yet. Hold on one moment. Now you're live.
So I'm calling the select board meeting to order on August 19th, 2022 at 9:01 a.m. Vanessa, did we start with public comment at the first or the end?
Hang
First.
on. I think first.
I do too.
Hang on, I was just grabbing the agenda. Actually, no, at the end.
Okay, all right, let's go. So this is a quick meeting that was time sensitive, which is why we're doing it. So Andrew, you want to take it from here as far as what we're trying to do this morning?
Sure. So as I think you know, I am the co-chair with, or not the co-chair, I'm the vice chair of the St. Mark Street Park Working Group. And we had as you'll recall, we had a revised charge to consider making a report and recommendation to the select board about the overall design of the park. And at the meeting, last meeting, which was the first Thursday in August, Greg Russell, who you all met at the select board meeting last time from VHB, appeared together with Michael Kluchman, who is a landscape architect who recently joined VHB. And the purpose of that meeting was for Mr. Kluchman to listen to the feedback from the working group about ideas for the park. And what we would like to do at our next meeting on Thursday, August 25th, is have him prepare 3 different conceptual designs of the park and be available to attend the meeting and meet with the working group to talk about feedback, ideas, reactions, etc. So it's now getting beyond the scope of the work that we've initially contracted with VHP for, and Karen can help me with some of the details here, but they prepared a proposal, which is a not to exceed, I don't have it in front of me right here, I think it's a little under 7,700, although the way I interpret it, their estimate for this first phase of the work would be 6,500. And at Mark and Vanessa's suggestion, wanted to bring this proposal to the select board to ask for its approval before we commit to doing this work. And it would come out of the DPW engineering budget for FY23. So I can answer any questions that anyone has. Some of them might be best suited to Karen, but I can speak to what the working group has done.
Chelsea?
Thank you. I do have a few questions. The revised charge that we approved for the working group included public forums.
Yep.
So where are we at with those? Because I thought before we engaged with a contract that the public would have an opportunity to participate.
Okay. I mean, to date, we've been thinking that, the regularly scheduled meetings that we've been having kind of qualify as the public forum. But certainly, one of the things that we could do is once the working group settles on a recommendation, we could either through the working group or through the select board then have some type of a additional public forum to get feedback from people just on that proposal. But I think we first want to get to the point where the select board has there's a recommendation from the working group on one proposal rather than 3 potential different ones.
So I think part of the reason why we're in the position that we're in is because we didn't get enough public input a year ago on the entire project. And I mean, we included in the charge that there would be at least 3 meetings in a public forum, either in person or by remote participation, at which public comment is solicited and encouraged. The town shall publicize the dates and times of working group meetings and encourage public participation. So what you just described to me does not fall in that description. So before we engage with more funding for this, I think we need to make sure that, I mean, this is a highly criticized project to begin with, and I want to make sure whatever funds that we expend in the future, that we get that public feedback and that we don't continue to have criticism around the project. I want, you know, I want people to have the opportunity to voice that. My second question is, if this is going to come out of the DPW budget, what isn't going to get done this year? Because the line item that I'm assuming you're suggesting is the engineering line item that gets used every year, if not overused. So
Okay,
maybe
well,
that's a question for Karen.
yeah, I think the second question is first for Karen, but I think we talked about this when we had the first version of the working group charge back in December, that the regularly scheduled meetings that we've had qualified as a public forum, and we certainly have had public comment that people who are not part of the working group have attended. They have offered comments during the meeting, and we've had probably 10 meetings of the working group so far. You know, they've all been posted. So I think, you know, I would be open to having something additionally that would be a public forum that would be, you know, advertised more. But we have done that. We have had at least 3 meetings. And getting back to when we had the original charge in December, you know, I think that was really when we were going to just fill in the unfilled circular space in the middle. I think the original idea behind that 3 meeting requirement was that it could be done quickly, but it's turned out to be something more complicated. So yeah,
So I haven't seen any postings on the town website or advertisements on anything saying to attend these meetings. And I think the genesis, at least what I thought when putting the charge together, was to make sure the public was aware during the summer that these conversations were happening. So that's what my concern is, Andrew, that not that you're not having meetings, but that the public, in my mind, has not been encouraged to actively participate in this. I just haven't seen anything, and maybe I missed it.
I can't speak to what other than through the public, you know, the ordinary process of posting through, you know, the town clerk's office and having it on the website. I mean, I certainly know that a lot of people are aware of this, and there's been coverage on it in mysouthborough.com. But again, we could do another, you know, public forum. But I think that in terms of today, I think it's important that we can move forward to get the expertise we need to get a couple of different conceptual designs for the working group to consider, and come forward with, you know, maybe one of those 3 has more support, and then have an additional public forum from that. But again, we've had probably like 10 meetings so far.
Is that it, Chelsea?
No, I still had a question for Karen on what won't get done if we expend her funds on this.
So that article or that line item is, it's basically, we use that for our stormwater every year, our permitting. And then it is for other things that come up that are unanticipated, but that we do need an expertise that we don't have in house. So it's not, it's kind of a set amount that we seem to spend every year, not, it's not allocated to specific things, because it's always that something comes up, needs a timeline that's quicker than anything else. So we have that money there. So it'll come from there. I can't say that something else won't come up that we're not like, oh crap, we need money for that. We'll have to go to advisory for, but usually we're able to manage within that number.
Okay,
For the record,
Ah.
Karen suggested using this line item. When we first started talking about it, we thought we could use Article 4 from the special town meeting from last November, but if you go back and read the language for that, it clearly was passed to support the NERI building work, the reorganizing the town departments, et cetera. So we didn't think that would work. Carla clearly said it didn't work. So the choices were Karen's budget, which she said she recommended using the budget, or ARPA, or a warrant article for the special on October 13th.
and do we know where we're at with the archaeological study?
The most recent I heard is that they are expecting to get a report back by Labor Day.
Okay, so I'm not comfortable expending funds on this before that's complete.
Is that it, Chelsea?
Yep.
Sam?
Yeah, I guess I'm more aligned with Andrew on this one. I think that I've attended most of the working group meetings. And one of the things I thought that helped focus the discussion and move things forward was Mr. Sines actually produced at one point along the way a hand-drawn sketch of a possible layout. And I thought that was very helpful in terms of focusing the committee's attention and discussion on some specific possibilities there. And I think that this exercise can do the same thing for the public. And Chelsea, I guess I'm hard pressed to think of another project recently that's had more publicity than this one. Unfortunately, most of it critical in terms of process and so forth. So I think there's been a substantial amount of public visibility as well as participation in these meetings. There have been many meetings that have had many comments from the public on it, and maybe not quite as focused as a quote standard kind of public listening session kind of thing. But I think we can get to where we need to be, as Andrew suggests, with a public input session focused around a specific set of options or recommendation, however this particular effort turns out to be, to focus people's attention on something specific versus a sort of a general what do you want kind of thing that I think is not a great way to make forward progress on it. I think people react better to a specific proposal than a general set of proposals, discussions, et cetera. And I think it's important to keep this process moving in a focused way. And I think this project can do that. So I'm supportive of spending this money. Thank you.
Lisa?
Thank you. So I have some comments and some process questions. I'm a little disappointed in the process at this point. In looking at the documentation that's been before us, I'm trying to figure out how we got to this point, asking for funding after the fact. I'm supportive and have been supportive of utilizing an architect or an engineer. But to me, to ask for expenditures without a budget or consent of this board is concerning to me. I don't find that particularly transparent. This board met on 6/14 and discussed the changes to the charge of the working group. I went back and rewatched the discussion again. At 3:52 in the meeting, I asked about a budget and we talked about a design or engineer at a future date. At 3:53 in the meeting, Mr. Dennington reiterated that by 9:30, we were expecting a one-page list with themes for a phase 2, which would include an outside engineer or help. Because, and again, as Chelsea mentioned, there was need for community input in this to be successful as we move the design forward. Also, we agreed to look for specific people with specific backgrounds that might accomplish some of the outside help we were looking for. We approved the change to the charge. On 6/28, we updated the charge with an expiration date change. I'm trying to understand, before we move further on expenditures, how on 6/28, a landscape architect was recommended from VHB to discuss with the working group discussion and have recommendations. On 7/14, the working group met and discussed, the group will send a design to an engineer for development as the group needs a concept. 7/28, there was discussion with the VHB architect in a meeting. 8/4, there was a discussion, one agenda item with VHB as well. There was a initial contract for those meetings and those times of $1,195. So why are we asking for funding now? Obviously we need it, but how did all of these discussions take place with VHB without consent of this board on what we agreed on 6/14? And I just want to be clear, this is a complete process issue with me that I'm not supportive, for lack of transparency. And we've been accused of this. Kathy, you weren't on the board then, but other members of this board have been accused of lack of transparency on the process. And I think moving forward, it needs to be a priority to us. And I think it's easy enough to come back and update. This board is met. We had a special meeting today for this. So I'm just disappointed that we're asking for funds that some of them have already been expended at this point. And I think that's a problem. And I think it's something we need to address as we move forward. And without the archaeological dig being done, we're asking for $7,700 of the taxpayers. And we don't know what's going to happen with the dig. And this money might just be thrown out the window. So I'm a little frustrated, disappointed at having this meeting today based on what we had agreed on in a prior meeting. So I'd just like to know how we got to monies have already been expended and we're asking for them, asking this board to approve them now. Thank you.
Andrew, you want to respond to Lisa?
Okay, so the archaeological survey first, I think that the report was originally anticipated to be done by now, okay? And these dates have just been moving frequently. We discussed that we wanted to have a target date to get a recommendation to the select board around like mid-September, early September.
September 30th. Yep.
Okay. All right. And to date, I mean, Karen can help me with this about, I think what we have done so far has been within the scope of what we it's within the scope of what we originally had discussed, but I mean, Karen, maybe you can help me additionally. I mean, I can just say from a practical standpoint, it's been very difficult to try to get this working group that has a lot of different strong viewpoints to coalesce around a couple of concrete proposals. This has clearly been the most focused way of moving forward. And at the last meeting we had, this is, people were excited about hearing Mr. Klukman's ideas. And so I don't think I've answered.
My concern isn't about the work that the group is doing. I think there's no fault at all in the work that's being done in the group. My concern is expenditure, money's being expended that this board took a position on that we discussed at a 6/14 meeting that, for the 9:30, we're expecting a one-page list of themes. And it's great that you've moved ahead of that, but it might have been nice for this board to know that we were bringing on a landscape architect and expending funds before they happened. And that's my concern, Andrew, is that we are a board and before the funds should have been expended. And he's attended meetings. So those funds have already been expended. One meeting. So I thought there was two. I thought that, so he came on the 4th, but he had discussions. Okay. There were discussions that took place. And the reason we're having this meeting is because he's coming to give renderings on the 25th, which again, he's working on them now. So that's my concern. Our funds are being expended outside of the scope of this board based on discussions we had. And at any time, we could have had a meeting just like this and said, hey, we're ready to go to the landscape architect phase. And we all would have said fine, because we were all fine when we discussed it. So it's a process for me. And I just hope that going forward, we're more cognizant of staying within the four corners of the processes that we set.
Okay, understood.
Okay, so I guess I'm going last here. This has been a very interesting discussion as far as this. I thought this would be much easier than it is. I guess I'm going to come down on, I hear what Lisa says. I hear what Chelsea says. I actually do think it's been publicized appropriately by the fact that the meetings are always open. Andrew, I don't know how many people have attended them, but I'm okay with that. I think now they need to get to the next step. They need to have a design to look at. And that's where we can make sure the public is certainly advised that now we've got 3 choices here. Come on in and tell us what you think. So I am okay with what's going to happen from this point on as far as the public being involved in the final design. I just want to make something clear. And I think this conversation did it. I was going to ask, what's the difference between the 6,500 and 7,695? And now I guess I know. So Andrew, the 1195 is what has been expended to date with the 2 prior meetings. Is that true?
I do not know.
Okay.
Kathy, I actually have the sheet. The 1195 was for 2 HB staff members, or they were going to attend a virtual kickoff meeting with the chair of the committee to discuss the committee's request. And then 2 VHB staff members will attain a virtual meeting on the St. Mark's Working Group Committee on August 4th to gain input. And then there was going to be a site visit. Andrew, do you know, there was a site
Yeah.
visit prior to the 4th. So the 1195, yes, has been expended if the site visit has taken place as well.
Yes.
What
So
are
this-
you looking at, Lisa?
So in the packet, or was sent to us, there was a client authorization sheet for the, it was an amendment for 6,500. I had asked Karen if there was one prior, because obviously the contract total was more.
Yeah.
And there was a prior sheet dated 7/29 for 1195. That's why the 6,500 amendment was done.
That's clear now.
So.
Okay. All right. So thank you for that clarification. So I just, this project needs to go to the next step, I believe. It's all starting to come together. We do expect the results of the study very, very soon. I have a meeting with St. Mark's coming up, so I would like to go forward with this with the, I think, Andrew, you've heard what has been said here. So going forward, make sure we really do keep select board involved all the way through, especially with the money piece of it. And then pursuant to Chelsea's concern, make sure that when, well, the 25th is next week. So let's make sure that gets advertised more than just posting a meeting so that people know that there's going to be 3 designs that are going to be looked at your meeting on the 25th.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Any other comment before we vote?
So I have another question. So this sounds like it's phase 1. Do we know what subsequent phases will look like and the cost related to those?
I think that it's really going to depend on how the meeting on the 25th goes. If some of these renderings look, good, and we can coalesce behind them, then I think that it takes care of that. But I think based on your comments, if the working group feels that they're, wants additional tweaks or anything like that, I will make sure to see what the cost is and come to the board before we move forward on that.
But this is for landscape design, right?
Mhm.
So what is phase 2? So let's assume that there's no tweaks to phase 1. What's after this? I'm just trying to understand what the full scope of this is going to be, because there are no funds for this technically in the current FY23 budget. So if we're going to be sitting here in, 6 weeks, go ahead, Karen, you probably know.
So when they get a concept that they've agreed to, that everyone likes, and through the public process or whatever, we do have money in the contract still to build, right? Because we haven't taken that out as a change order. So there's that money, and we'll just need to get engineering funds in order to finalize. I don't have an amount for that, but it shouldn't be a ton of heavy lifting on that, but we will need to figure out where that's going to come from, and whether we used to have this engineering article that I think has $800 in it now, which when Mark and I originally spoke, we thought that there was more in that. We used to keep it around 15,000, and it might be worth a special town meeting trying to put money back into that. And I believe that would probably cover it at least.
Okay. So I guess what my concern is we just sat through town meeting and got a lot of negative feedback around this. And I understand there's been posted meetings. In my mind, what was posted did not fall within the charge. I think it should have been advertised if this is what was going on. I personally have not been following these meetings, Andrew. So I haven't seen anything public, any public advertisement about this. So my concern is, how are we going to get the community more involved? And is your intent to spend this money on the renderings and go to fall town meeting with the renderings and say, this is phase 2, we need engineering funds now. Town of Southborough, are you willing to commit to this? I just want to make sure that we're not going too far down the route and then, have negative comments coming out like they weren't, the community didn't feel included or they don't agree with what it is. And, I understand we're not going to, satisfy everyone's opinion, but I just think I just want to make sure for me that we're being transparent about this and we're not just approving something on a Friday morning in August. Like I want to make sure that we're being transparent, and I'm very uncomfortable with this.
Kathy, can I add a follow-up to that?
Yes.
Thank you. So I think, Andrew, if I were you, one of the takeaways I would have from this is you have roughly a week until that meeting. I would make that meeting a public forum. I would work with Vanessa and get it out there within the public. So you say to the public, here, we've come up with some great drawings. This is a great opportunity for you to see it at the same time we see it and get your feedback. That's a suggestion on that. Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Sorry, I interrupt. Just on that, that would be, like occurring the last week of August. So maybe it would be better to, in addition to that, have another public forum that's after Labor Day.
Andrew, I think that's great.
Yep.
I think that's definitely the
Yep.
way to go, because there are going to be people that are away that are going to say, I didn't know, I didn't have a chance to have input. So that's great. And you can work with Vanessa on that, and I'll work with getting it all over social media as well. The second point is, I think we need to kind of figure out where we're at. So this is $7,700. And then if we're going to need more money down the road, there's been a lot of comments from members of the public that they don't want taxpayer money spent on technically private land. And I think that challenge is still out there. And the more that we spend as we move forward on this, I think the taxpayers and transparency need to know where we think we're going to end up. How much additional monies may this be? And I know you don't know that today, but I just want to be very open. As Chelsea said, we're meeting on a Friday in summer, one of the last weekends of summer. I want the public to be aware that, we're cognizant of that. And just regarding this expenditure, Andrew, I don't want to see any pitfalls or things impact negatively that people felt it wasn't done in an open manner. So that's it.
Okay.
What is the rush for next week, Andrew?
I think we wanted to, that helps meet I thought our target date to get this recommendation, given our, the select board meeting schedule here, was more in the earlier part of September.
We're expecting a whole lot of things to happen pretty soon that will either show us that we're going to go forward with the park or not. Those things should happen in September, including the results of the study, the meeting that I've got with St. Mark. So we've got a lot that's going to happen in September to go forward with this process. So the timing of this, I think, is appropriate. But I like Lisa's suggestion, Andrew, as far as, go ahead with your meeting next week, but then, invite, advertise that one too, but then go ahead with a real full-throated advertisement of a public meeting to really discuss the three options and get public input into those, following that when people are back from summer and school started and people have settled back in like they do here.
So in addition, you want to advertise the meeting on Thursday and then also advertise an additional meeting after Labor Day?
That's what I would do. That's what I think. It can't hurt, right?
Yes.
And I can work with Andrew, offline and get that pushed out to all our media outlets.
Thank you.
Okay, anything
Vanessa, sorry,
Okay.
Kathy, if you would just send me a copy of it as well, I'll make sure that it gets on social media as well.
Absolutely.
Thank
Yes.
you.
So sorry, what is the goal for phase two, Andrew? Are you intending on adding an article? Because I do not want to tap into Karen's budget again in FY '23. I think, that's used for road engineer projects. And we know we have a lot of roads coming up. So what is your intent for phase two?
I think that it really all depends on what this, how things go on the 25th and whether there's and also the public forum that follows from that. But I really, what the next phase is really a discussion with the board about what the next phase is.
But there's still going to be a cost to that if we move forward.
Yeah. And I
So
think
that's what I'm
Karen,
asking. Assuming that there is a phase two, what is your plan?
my plan would be, again, to work with Karen to find out within the additional framework that we had for the plans for the original park, how much of the cost of building the park can be fit within that to keep it, as low a cost as possible.
So here's an update on that contract with E.H. Perkins. It was roughly $2.5 million. Karen calls it various streets. She has submitted change orders that take off the flag Deerfoot portion. There were three pieces to it, remember? The site, the park, Main Street, and Deerfoot flag. Deerfoot flag has been removed. She has replaced that with the work to extend Cordoval Road down to the overpass over the reservoir. It is causing a net increase, at least as of this morning, of about $300,000, Karen, and tell me if I'm wrong with the number as far as the change order goes. The park piece has been left untouched until we go further. So there's work to be done with that contract once we have more info. So I don't see how Andrew can answer Chelsea's question this morning until we get a little bit further down the road and really understand where we're going with this park in total. So with that, any other further discussions as far as approving this VHB proposal?
Kathy,
Go ahead, Sam.
one small point to Chelsea's question. I think it's a good question, but again, as I've listened to the working group discussions, there has also been conversation there about what I view as a very low touch,
Yes.
complicated design for this space that would essentially be open space, basically. And if that option turned out to be the one that was supported, additional engineering and construction costs for something like that would be de minimis, I think. However, if there's other possibilities that could create more costs, so I think Andrew's point is well taken, that we just don't know at this point what's going to come out as a recommendation. So it's hard to estimate a phase two at this point. So again, I remain interested in moving forward to the next step, and then we'll deal with that as necessary, and hopefully with appropriate public participation. Thanks.
Kathy, could I request that we put this on the September, 8th, whatever the date is, agenda, just to, if there's any further updates from the forums and everything, just so we have a better idea of maybe whether a warrant article is warranted or not, but if we could just put it on that agenda for further discussion, that would
Yes.
be great. Thank you.
Vanessa, did you hear that?
All set, the 7th.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to make a motion to approve the proposed contract from VHB for $7,695 to prepare 3 renderings of the park layout options to be presented to the St. Mark's Park Working Group on August 25th to be funded by the engineering line item in the fiscal year 23 DPW budget.
Second.
For discussion?
Further discussion?
Yeah, just one quick point. So if we approve this and this includes them coming for the 25th with renderings, what's going to happen on the public forum, Andrew, that we're going to do in September? Are we going to come back and ask for additional funds, or?
Well, I
How-
wouldn't think that, okay. Now, when you asked before, you're talking about 2 public forums with the landscape architect, or just a public forum in which the working group is also hearing feedback from members of the public, in addition to the people who would have attended the working? I mean, I think your question is, is there going to be additional cost to have a Mr. Klugman attend?
And Andrew, I would be supportive of that. No question, because I think the public forums are important, but I'm just wondering if we approve this amount with an amendment that, it would to include an increase for the September forum. I just want to make sure that we're covering our bases. That's all.
Well, this is
Okay.
up to, it's not a flat amount. It's up to, so Andrew, if you were to ask BHB, my guess is, and said it was a Zoom meeting, they could come in by Zoom, that we think we need to do this basically twice to make sure the public has been notified properly and they're all back from vacation, et cetera. My guess is they would say this would work fine within their proposal, but you'd have to ask.
Just to note, Mr. Miller does have his hand up.
Okay, we'll bring him over in just a second. So
It-
Andrew has disappeared.
Sorry, Kathy. I'm fine approving this amount. I just want to make sure that we don't come up, $400 or $500 short when this board is supportive of doing that. That's all.
So Andrew, I think, has lost us for a moment. So well, maybe.
I'm back, but I probably, I don't know how much more.
And just to make sure, it's $76.95 is the amount, right?
Mhm. Which is what I
Is that
said.
what you said in your motion? Okay,
I did $7,695.
Okay.
We think $1,195 has already been spent. Okay, yes, 7,695.
okay.
Okay, so while we're waiting for Andrew to get reconnected, Vanessa, can we bring over Mr. Miller?
Mhm.
Good morning, Select Board, and thank you for allowing me to speak outside of public comment. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
I've been tracking the issue of the archaeological dig very closely and just wanted to, because I thought it might help your considerations. I actually received an email just last night at 8:51 p.m. for the record, from Greg Walwer, who's the director of the archaeological firm that's going to do the dig. And he indicated to me that MHC, I'm reading the email, MHC approved the permit application. And next week we will start setting up for the project. And I emailed him back to ask for clarification on that as to, does that mean you're going to be on site next week? I don't think so. But it may indicate that they'll be on site probably, possibly the week of the week after next of the 29th or shortly after Labor Day. So I asked for clarification from him on that. And I haven't heard back yet today. When I do, I can pass it along. But my concern is that, until we have some results from the archaeological dig, that expenditure of money on, engineering studies is, in my humble opinion, somewhat of an academic exercise. And while I find the conversations among the park working group very useful and very helpful in the way of formulating tentative plans, I do share some of the concerns about spending money before the field has been, so to speak, cleared of the presence of remains. But I did wanted to, so that's just my opinion. But as regards action, I just did want you to know that MHC has approved the dig, and that I think its start time might be fairly imminent. So if there was an impulse to hold off on spending engineering money until you had results, I at least think there's some hopeful light in that regard. And I do, by the way, support public hearings. I asked for one on June 30th during the working group meeting. I will say that Marguerite Landry, our chair, is wonderful about taking public comment from people at any time they care to raise a hand during our meetings. However, we don't, public comment is not listed on our agendas. So that would be one argument toward indeed having a listening session or one or more hearings. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you, Kevin. Will you keep Vanessa and Mark posted as to what else you learned from your email back to?
Yeah, I will. If I get news back from Greg in which he's more specific, I'll definitely pass it along to Mr. Purple and Vanessa.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so we've got a motion on the table. It's been seconded. We've discussed it. So we are ready to vote. So this is a roll call vote because we're on Zoom. Chelsea,
No.
Lisa,
No.
Sam,
Yes.
Andrew, okay, I'm yes, so I'll go to me, then back to Andrew. Andrew, can you hear us? So Andrew, you may want to use your phone to call in if you can do that quickly. If you can hear us. So we can't hear you at all, if you can hear us. So I will give him another 30 seconds, then we will adjourn with this not being passed 2-2.
Hi, you've reached Andrew.
Okay, I don't know what else to do. He's not answering his cell phone either. I just wish I knew if he's hearing us or not. So Vanessa, that's probably nothing you can tell from your end, right?
No, I can't. And I mean, we can grab the phone number that he could call in on, but I can't tell if he can hear you.
All right, so give me the phone number. I can text him real quick.
Okay, hang on a second. I have to go.
Kathy, would it be useful during this time where we're waiting for Andrew, for Chelsea and I, for anybody paying attention, to just explain why our position is no, in case there's any question? Or if you prefer not, that's okay too. I'm just asking.
Well, I don't want to sit here and do nothing, but I think it's pretty clear why your position's no.
Okay,
from the
fair
previous-
enough. Fair enough. Just trying to kill some time while we're waiting.
Oh, I hear you. So let's see what this can do. Let's solve this quickly.
He's coming back.
Okay, he's gonna need to call the phone number and insert the meeting ID as
Okay.
well as the password. Are you ready?
I'm ready for the phone number.
309-205-3325.
Okay.
The meeting ID is 823-832-84869.
Okay, let me read that back. 823-832-84869.
Correct. And then the passcode for the meeting is 551597.
Okay, hold on a second. Just I was doing something else with this. Okay, hold on. Okay, now give me the passcode again.
551597.
551597. Now go back to the meeting ID because I started deleting that accidentally. So 823832848869.
Correct.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. So I just sent
Is
you
this
a
meeting
text.
still going on, or I just lost?
No, we're still waiting for you. So we'll give you another minute or so. So I just sent you a text with how you can
Yeah.
call in. So I gave you the phone number, I gave you the meeting ID, and I gave you the passcode.
All right.
Okay. Okay, he's calling in.
Okay.
Yes, the
Katie, he'll
passwords-
probably just show up as a number on the screen to bring him over.
Okay, I'll watch out.
Okay, so I'm going to hold on this item, and I'm going to go on to public comment while we're sitting here, and see if there's any public comment from our audience. Okay, I see none. Karen, if you've got something you need to do, I don't see any reason for you to stay on. You've given us what we need from you, so you can go back to dealing with the
Plugging the
gas
gas leak,
problem.
Gas leak. Wait, yeah.
roasting marshmallows over the gas leak.
The fire chief called me a few minutes ago just to confirm that Main Street is closed from the intersection down around the corner to Boston Road and Newton Street. Reliant Medical is still open. At this point, they haven't needed to be evacuated.
Will you keep us posted?
Yes.
My street had to be closed yesterday too for a different reason for the whole afternoon, so.
Oh, look.
Wasn't it because of a tree, Kathy?
Absolutely. Not
Well,
one
it
that's
was due
been
to
marked to
come
come down
down.
either, Lisa, so it's
Yeah.
it's a living
Was
tree.
the tree due to come down from our vote?
Mm-mm.
A new one, huh?
I mean, who knows what this drought's doing to the ground and roots, et cetera.
If that's not working again, but we could, at least I could hear him very well when he just called you a few minutes ago. It was very audible if that's acceptable for him to vote by roll call.
Hi, Kathy.
So
I'm trying valiantly.
it's okay. I know you are. Vanessa has said that we can hear you fine on my cell phone. So if you want to
Okay.
vote,
Okay.
I will. Can everybody hear Andrew?
Yes.
So say something, Andrew.
Hello?
Can everybody nod that they hear Andrew? Okay,
Yes.
Chelsea's saying yes. Okay, so Andrew, we have made a motion to approve the 7695 for VHB to do the 3 renderings to be presented at the August 25th meeting to be funded by Karen's DPW line item for engineering. That's $55,000 for fiscal year 23. It's been made, motion and seconded. We voted all four. It's right now, it's 2-2. So Lisa and Chelsea have said nay. Sam and I have said yay. So you are the tie-breaking vote here.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody here, yeah, yay. Okay, all right, thank you. Bye, Andre. Okay, bye. Sorry. Okay, all right, so 3-2 to approve the 7695. Okay, so there's no further public comment that I see, so therefore a motion to adjourn. Someone?
Second,
Roll call vote. Lisa?
Aye.
Sam?
aye.
Chelsea?
Aye.
Cook is aye, so 4-0 to adjourn. See you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.